Hi, and welcome back to the Mom and Mind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kat, and this is another episode of Behind the Sessions. And it is the third in the series of the 2 a.m. pep talk. In episode 1 of this series, I talked about how hard the middle of the night can be and how heavy the middle of the night can be when you are up by yourself, when you feel like everyone else in the world is asleep but you, and you are struggling, exhausted, doing all that you can to take care of your baby, but also the feelings of anxiety that can come up. And I covered some of that in episode number 2 when anxiety and intrusive thoughts pop in the middle of the night. Now, those experiences, of course, I've expanded on a little bit in those episodes. So go back and listen to those if you haven't yet, and listen in to see if those resonate for you, if you identify with any of those things, because a lot of people do. The middle of the night with an infant, with a baby, with anything really is quite difficult, especially when it's night after night, or if you've started to develop this, deep feeling of dread about that middle of the night wake up. One of the things I want to touch on in this third episode in this series is how important taking care of you still is, even in the middle of the night. By this point in the day and in the night, you've given all that you can. You've given your baby your body, your milk or feeding from whichever avenue you're able to feed, your time, your touch, your everything. You might feel touched out. You might feel overwhelmed. And it is really, really easy to forget that you need care also. Sometimes in the most vulnerable times, it's the most important time to feel like you're being cared for. It's hard when it's just you up or you trying to get your partner up and they're not waking, or maybe your partner has a night shift and you are sort of solo parenting in the middle of the night. It is really easy to forget that you also need care and that paying attention to your needs still matter. Sometimes it can feel like you're just kind of waiting to get through the tasks of the middle of the night so that you can try and go back to sleep, or just get the baby to sleep so you can have a little bit of time to yourself before you try and get back to sleep. Having a little bit of time to yourself is part of self-care, but there's a different feeling that comes with like waiting for something to be over with so you can just like try and get by than actively having a plan on how to take care of yourself, or at least a list of a couple of things that you can do to help ease the intensity or the overwhelm that you might be feeling. So when I say self-care at 2 a.m., you're probably thinking like, yeah, we're not doing bubble baths at 2 a.m., although if you can, fine. It's not day spa type stuff. You're not going on a walk. You're not doing those things that we would associate with self-care during the daytime. And your acts of self-care aren't necessarily going to be some big or grand thing. I'm talking about small acts of self-care, small manageable things that you can do to support yourself while you are in this middle of the night stretch. Now, your options might be limited. It really depends on who's around, who else can help. But I'm going to assume for right now in this section that it's you. It's you on your own, and there's not a lot of help. And if there is help, it's maybe not as much as you want or need, because we need all kinds of help at 2 a.m. So this kind of self-care can involve thinking ahead a little bit. What are you going to need in the middle of the night? If you have time to make sure you have water or a snack by your bedside, that counts as self-care. That counts as thinking ahead. What might I need? What's going to make my nighttime easier? And although it's not groundbreaking, if you know what it feels like to be sort of stuck under a baby who's feeding when you can't get up when you're thirsty and you can't get up when you need a snack, or if you do get up, it's, maybe going to prolong your routine. You know what that feeling is like. Like, just something being just out of reach, like your water bottle is across the room and all you can think about is, oh my gosh, I just need a sip of water. You have to wait. And that feeling is hard, especially when it's like a very basic, a fundamental need, a foundational need like water, or food, and you can't quite get to it. You can become really fixated on not having it nearby. So thinking ahead is self-care. Like, yep, I'm going to have a bottle of water right next to the bed or the chair or wherever you're feeding or going to be in that 2, 3 a.m. wake up time. And not everybody thinks about a snack to have there at bedside or chair side in the middle of the night. But sometimes you do wake up hungry, or you've been up for a little while and you're hungry and you're, doing all these things. But if you're up with a baby and trying to attend to, all of their needs, you might not even notice you're thirsty or hungry until you finally have settled and you're sitting and feeding. And at that time, most of the time, you're just trying to not disrupt whatever process you're in with baby. Like, you want them to continue feeding. It might be hard to get up while nursing or feeding with a bottle, grab things with, your hands while you're doing that. So having something bedside is actually really quite supportive. Another thought or idea is like maybe when you wake up in the middle of the night, it's always cold and end up needing socks or a blanket or a sweater or something that helps you feel less cold. Having those available, those types of things available and on hand can be really helpful. Or maybe on the other side, you end up feeling hot and overheated and you need a little bit of comfort. Like maybe you have a little handheld fan nearby or a clip-on, fan that can plug in or is battery run that you can have nearby by your bedside or wherever it is that you end up sitting down or feeding, where you can add in a little bit more of a comfort measure just to even help with, again, some basic needs is if you're too hot or too cold, that there's something you can do about it in the moment, that those things are available nearby. Another thought is if you're somebody who stays up, during that 2 o'clock time and ends up doom scrolling or being on your phone for too long, or that ends up being stressful in and of itself. Not that being on your phone is bad, but if being on your phone is stressful for you, you end up going down rabbit holes that increase the amount of anxiety you have or make you start thinking about other things to then Google or whatever. Maybe having a different type of thing that you can listen to or that helps you feel more soothed, like music, could help, or a white noise machine, or even if all you have is your phone, whatever app you use to listen to music, or even white noise. There's like a whole channel on YouTube and probably on some of the other listening platforms that are just different types of white noise, brown noise, pink noise. There's all kinds of noise. I don't know what they all mean, but there are different things that you can listen to that can add to a sense of calm or at least not contribute to feelings of anxiety and overwhelm. So that could be gentle music, classical music, or soft jazz, or just your favorite chill band, somebody that you really like to listen to that makes you feel relaxed or at least in a positive or neutral mood. So opting for music or white noise over something like a doom scroll that ends up keeping you up longer, probably contributing to anxiety, sends you down all these pathways that lead your brain into deep dives all over the place. Maybe that's not the best choice at 2 a.m. Again, it's not necessarily that in and of itself is a bad choice, but checking in with yourself while you're awake during the day or in the middle of the night, like, how is this impacting me? Is this news article that I'm reading or watching making me feel more stressed out? Well, if it is, then maybe offer yourself a different option. Opt for something that's more soothing or more calming. Another small act of self-care in the middle of the night could be that once you've done all of the feeding and the changing and the hunching over, as you know, we all end up being hunched over with these activities, take a minute to just stretch before you get back into bed. Something really gentle, something that, even if it's just like putting your shoulders back, if you do feel like you've been hunched over, if it's stretching your arms out wide, putting your hands behind your head, moving your shoulders from side to side, bending over from one side to the next, touching your toes, anything that you can feel in your body that might need a little bit of a release or that may have become a little bit more tense as you were going through this chunk of time in the middle of the night, attending to that even for just a moment so that you don't get back into bed with tension and with tightness, with your shoulders up around your ears because there's so much stress or anxiety. Just taking a minute to do a little stretch would be so useful for letting your body know that, okay, we're like winding down. We're trying to get back to a place where we feel relaxed again and release some of that tension so that you can ideally more easily transition back into sleep. So now think for yourself, are there small, tiny, doable things that you can do to inject a little bit of self-care, a little bit of attention into the moment or that hour that you've been awake, whatever it is, that could maybe help just a little bit? It is not necessarily a natural thing for us to always be checking in with ourselves, like, how am I doing? What do I need? Although I'm a huge proponent of doing that as often as possible, but especially not in the middle of the night. You're really not thinking about self-care at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. You might feel sort of desperate for some kind of relief or support, but we're not always thinking about, what do I need in this moment? So thinking ahead of time about what you might need can help you be a little bit more aware in the middle of the night of what's available to you, what you can do to help yourself at that hour. And, there are any of these small micro shifts can help regulate our nervous system, even just a little bit. Even if it's just, a half of 1%, it's better than no percent. So that could look like a single slow inhale and exhale that you can stretch out as long as you're comfortable. It really signals to your brain, once you take a slow, deep breath in and a slow breath out, it signals to your body that we're not in an emergency right now because I have the time to take this breath. Because if you're in an emergency, you're not stopping to take a deep breath and to regulate. You're responding, you're reacting, you're doing what's needed to be done in order to respond to that emergency. But in the middle of the night, if you're exhausted and anxious and having all the feelings we've already talked about in episode 1 and 2, and now this, you are in need of a little bit of regulation of your nervous system because you might feel like it's an emergency. You might feel that anxiety. You might feel that overwhelm. But if nothing is actually happening that you need to respond to quickly, then more likely than not, your body and mind are responding to just the stress of it, not just, but the stress of it, the anxiety and the overwhelm, and honestly, the sleep deprivation. So sometimes in the middle of the night, you can be tired, physically tired, but still kind of wired in your mind and in your body, like hard to rest, hard to relax. So signaling to your body that Okay, we're taking this long, slow, deep breath in and out. It could be multiple breaths in and out, but one, starting at one would be great. Lets your body know that you are taking steps to reduce your stress, that you are not in danger, that this is, in fact, the middle of the night. You can remind yourself of that. It's 2 a.m. Right now is the time for sleep. And even if you don't feel like you can get to sleep right away, signaling to your body that's what we're prepping for can be part of the process of getting back to sleep and back to rest. And so, even though you might be really deeply engaged in caring for your baby or babies or children in the middle of the night, um, is shifting over to taking care of yourself can also bring up that old feeling of that self-care is selfish, or that you're not supposed to be focusing on yourself. You're supposed to be only doing for your child. But that self-care for you that helps you feel regulated, that helps you get back to sleep is also good for them, because then they have a more regulated parent. Then they have a parent who has more sleep on board or more rest on board, and which equals more patience, which equals lots of other great things. But even outside of that, just you as a person, you matter. You taking care of yourself isn't a selfish act. That's what we have to do to just function. Like, we need food, we need water, we need sleep. These are really basic foundational needs that we all have. So every sip of water that you recognize that you need and you take, every deep breath that you recognize that you need and you take, every bite of food that you recognize you need and you have, is a way of saying to your body and to yourself that you matter too. And even if it doesn't feel comfortable to say that, or doesn't come easy to say that, you can ease into it. You don't have to go to, I'm not being selfish, I matter too. You can go to, like, okay, me taking care of myself is also me taking care of my child, because they need a present parent and a fed parent and a hydrated parent, so that I can be functioning as well as possible given my current situation, and be there for them in the way that I can. That's not selfish. That is nowhere near selfish. So far, focus primarily on you taking care of yourself. But here's an idea. Enlist your partner to help before bedtime. There are lots of ways that partners can help, even if they're going to be gone on a work shift, or like if it would take like a freight train going right by to wake them up, or if you had a bullhorn and were screaming in their ear, they would still be asleep. There are things that they can do to help you before they go to bed, before they leave for work, before whatever. And asking for help from them is also self-care. Just asking. It's not Asking doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's going to be able to give you the help that you want and need in the way that you want and need, but having them help you to plan ahead is self-care. And telling them why it's important can be helpful, but you don't have to do that either. You can just say, I would like some support for the middle of the night. I know you're going to be at work, or I know it's hard for you to wake up. So here's some ideas on how you can help me. They could set up a little nighttime kit for you. They could set up a little stand for you near your bed or near a feeding station or wherever it is that you're going to be with your baby, and have them include things. You can give them a list of things that you need, but have them include things that you like, that you want, or that you need for that 2 a.m. wake up call. So, like, what kinds of things help you? We've already talked about water and a snack. So maybe that's something that they can get together ahead of time to put next to your bed, or put next to the chair where you feed baby. That's an easy do. Some water and a snack. The other thing is to think about what you will need in the middle of the night. which of course you can think about this for yourself, but I'd love to enlist partners or family members, whoever's around. What are you going to need? Are you going to need clean pump parts nearby? Are you going to need to bottle feed in the middle of the night? Like they could prepare a bottle with the measured out bit of water that you need, a little scoop or pouch or something like that with the measured out amount of formula that you're going to need. That's all pre-measured. So all you have to do is dump and shake. I mean, if you use a bottle warmer, then that's another step, but something that can help take steps of things to do off of your list. They could do that for you ahead of time. So it's just there and just ready. Maybe you're going to need clean burp cloths, or you're going to need baby wipes, or you know that baby's going to need to be changed. So they could get together a diaper and wipes and a clean outfit just in case there's a blowout, which, there usually is at some point in the day or night, that stuff is already put together and just there so that you have less thinking to do, less steps to do. And I think one of the more important parts of this is that when you, going back to episode 1 in this series, when you feel alone in the middle of the night and you remember that somebody has taken steps to help you ahead of time, that your partner or family member or whoever put together this little kit for you or did this or that for you so that you could have an easier time, that in and of itself helps you feel less alone. Because even if they're not exactly there, they put thought into it and time and effort and energy, and they listened to what you needed and said, yeah, I'm going to help you. And that in the middle of the night can feel really great and supportive too. I mean, it's relatively easy, saying that with a little bit of a hesitation, because for some people it is hard to help out in these ways. But in the scheme of things, it's not a big ask. It is a small ask to help you feel supported. You have less work to do. And honestly, it's good for them too, because you are going to feel less tired. You are going to feel more supported. And all of these things help maintain connection too. So you could very easily have done all of those things on your own in the middle of the night while your partner's like sawing logs over there and snoring, and you are building resentment while they're asleep and you're doing stuff. But if they're able to help before you even get to sleep and are woken up in the middle of the night, when you wake up and you're doing those tasks and you know that your partner has supported you to have things be easier, that's less resentment. That's less anger towards them. That's less frustration towards them. So it actually benefits them too. And when there's a benefit to all of you in the family system, that is a win-win-win. Everybody has benefit there. So I'm a huge proponent for asking for this type of support. And if you have a partner who isn't necessarily thinking of supporting you or helping you in these ways on their own, then it might even be bringing to their attention or their awareness of what you are doing in the middle of the night and how they can help. A lot of partners do want to know how to help. They want to know, just like, tell me what to do and I'll do it. And sure, it would be lovely if everybody was totally psychic and completely anticipated our needs and can just do that for us. But that's usually not what we're working with all the time. We might have to be transparent and clear about what our needs are and tell them like, hey, I'm so glad that there is something that you want to do to help. And you've told me before, if you just tell me what to do, I'll do it. This is like a kind of easy thing to do that helps me out actually a lot in the middle of the night. Could you grab water and snacks and clean pump parts and, diaper and a clean onesie so that in the middle of the night, things can go more quickly for me so I can get back to sleep. Like, me having sleep is good for all of us. That's a relatively easy ask. This is like low-hanging fruit, easy for partners to support with. It doesn't take a ton of time to do ahead of time. But in the middle of the night, if you're doing it on your own, it just adds to the heaviness and the overwhelm if you're having to do it on your own every single night. Another possibility for the middle of the night is, especially if you're somebody who's kind of having that dread feeling and having that anxiety feeling, is to find one thing or a couple of things that bring you comfort. Maybe it is like a nice cozy pair of socks. Maybe it's your favorite blanket. Maybe it's a scent. Maybe there's like a candle or something that has a scent that you like in it, or an essential oil that helps you, feel calm or centered or grounded. Mm, Maybe there's like a kind of a tea that you really love that helps you feel warm and calm. Whatever that is for you, you can add that into the middle of the night practice. Again, this might require a little bit of thinking ahead or just putting those things next to your bed on your nightstand or next to the chair where you feed baby, but something that can help anchor you and ground you in something that brings you joy or peace or comfort. It doesn't need to be, again, a massive, huge thing. It could just be like maybe you have like a rock that you hold on to that helps you feel comforted, or like a special stone that has healing properties, something like that. It doesn't have to be anything huge. It can just be one thing that brings you a little peace or comfort or joy to have close by. And finally, I want to offer an idea for a little meditation, nothing big, nothing complex, and some affirmations or things that you can say to yourself that are also grounding and or comforting. Using self-compassion in these moments is incredibly powerful. Can be hard, might not come naturally, but it's also really powerful. When you feel seen by somebody else and you feel validated by somebody else, you know how good that feels? That somebody is acknowledging that things are hard for you and that this is a lot and that you're doing a good job. When we can do that for ourselves, that is that's a big step. That's a big step in being able to see ourselves and validate our own experience and acknowledge for ourselves that what we're doing feels hard and we're still doing it. We're taking our steps forward. So by just acknowledging how you feel that, okay, this might be a moment of struggle. This might be a hard time of night, that touching back on episode 1 and 2 of this series, that you're not alone here. There are other people, while you might be physically alone where you are in the moment, there are other people who know what this is like. There are other people who are awake right now with you, and that the struggle that you might be experiencing is a moment and it's going to pass. And when you see yourself, when you validate, like, yeah, this is hard, I am doing what I can do, the best that I can do with very little sleep and all kinds of hormones or whatever your scenario is, can you give yourself the same kindness that you would give a friend? Can you give yourself the same kindness that you appreciate when people give you? That you can acknowledge and see yourself in that moment for the heart and the work and the care that you are putting into your child, and that you are now hopefully also trying to give yourself. And for some affirmative statements, things you can say to yourself, touching back on what we've talked about today in the last couple of episodes, that tending to yourself is a part of tending to your baby. You guys are a system together. You work together. And you feeling well is also good for them. So you can say that to yourself. Tending to myself is attending to my baby as well. And even with these small acts of self-care, I'm nurturing both of us. I matter too in this equation. And when you acknowledge that you are nurturing both of you, it can solidify over time, can solidify why acknowledging yourself and taking care of yourself and having these small, doable acts of self care in the middle of the night and anytime really are good for you and good for baby and good for your system, good for your family. The more we can shift the way we think about ourselves in motherhood to include ourselves in the equation, especially in the middle of the night, the more ease that comes with this process of parenting and shifting identity and understanding who you are as a parent. I mean, all this gentleness is important. You are in a process, you are learning, you are growing along with your baby, along with your partner, and attending to yourself in a new way, in ways that maybe you have never done before, or in ways that now include you and your baby. It takes some getting used to. But in these soft, tender, vulnerable moments of night, when thoughts that are sometimes more negative, sometimes more anxiety based, it's especially important in the middle of the night. So I hope this has been helpful for you to consider taking care of yourself in those wee hours of the night and understanding the why. I think that's really important. It's not just to take care of yourself because you're being selfish or self-centered or whatever your narrative is. It's important. Every little thing that you can do for yourself and that other people can do for you, in the example that we gave of having a partner or family member enlisted in supporting you, even if they're not going to physically be there or mentally, emotionally be there for you, that kind of support counts too. I hope this third episode in the 2 a.m. Pep Talk series has been helpful for you, and I'm excited in a couple of weeks to bring you the fourth episode. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time.